Georgia is now 4 months into the COVID-19 pandemic as cases surge in our state. Thanks for staying up late with us tonight, folks. I'm Ron Jones.
And I'm Aisha Howard. So as those cases skyrocket in Georgia, Governor Kemp is extending coronavirus restrictions tonight. And there are some new rules in this executive order that you need to know about. Natisha Lance is at the state capitol breaking it all down. Now, Natisha, what are the biggest takeaways from this new order?
Well, Aisha, first we need to point out why Governor Kemp may have done this. So Governor Kemp has said that he is concerned about the growing number of cases of COVID-19. Just last week, we hit a one-day record high of nearly 4,500 cases. So this extension of the order really speaks to that concern that he had. It was set to expire at midnight, but around 7 o'clock, Governor Kemp posted on his Facebook page that he would be extending his previous order that he just signed 2 weeks ago. Now, first, there are some things that will stay in place from that previous order. So, for instance, it will continue to require social distancing. It will ban gatherings of more than 50 people if they can't maintain a social distance of 6 feet. And it also expands the shelter-in-place orders for people in nursing homes and the medically fragile. Now, here is what is new about this, and this will be particularly important as school districts prepare to go back to school. So the school board can require face masks now, and school districts may also reduce classes or move students into a more open area to help with social distancing issues. Districts should also ensure ventilation systems are working properly. Now, lastly, over the last week, there was a stiff debate between Governor Kemp and Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms over masks. Governor Kemp has encouraged wearing masks, but he didn't go as far as to make it a mandate. Now, on the other hand, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms and other city leaders did make it a mandate. Well, now Governor Kemp's executive order suspends all mask mandates because they are more restrictive than his order, which means legally they cannot be enforced. Now, this new order will expire on July 30th, and if you want to read all the details about it, 42 pages. We'll have it up for you on 11alive.com.
All right, Natisha, thank you.